I'm going to share with you one of the clearest visions I've ever had in my life. It was in October of 1994. I was 29 years old, and it had been a difficult 7-year period, and I had made the very difficult decision to file for divorce. And I had a young son whom I loved very much and was concerned about the direction of my life and my future and his future, and so many things that I knew to be true in my heart and soul that I just didn't understand where life was leading me, where God was leading me. And so I went to sleep that night just troubled and my heart burdened and heavy. And that night I sat staring into space, and everything just came together as if all at once. And I saw this vision that was so striking and so beautiful. And to this day, it remains one of the most vivid visions that I've ever had, and particularly in terms of not associated with a particular person, either in this life or on the other side. And this vision was just so clear in my heart. It was like it was so real, and it was like a red carpet rolled out. And I just knew that regardless of what happened from here forward, that I would be held in its infinite grace and that all would somehow be well. And so here is the vision I had. I'm going to read this straight as I wrote it for my memoir many years ago. I published a memoir in 1999 called Journey to Sacred Wholeness, a testimony of healing and grace. And here is Mountaintop vision as I had it on October 23rd, 1994, when I was 29 years old. There is no way I could not write about this day. I feel such a peace, a lasting peace that escapes all description. It has just flooded my soul with such an abundant love. Last night, as I sat staring into space, all the pieces just began to fit together in the most remarkable way. In particular, I saw the whole picture of my life and my failed marriage. Then I had a vivid and amazing vision. I feel silly using that word because when I have talked about them in the past, no one else seems to have experienced anything like this, but I have them. Here's what happened in this one. I was on a pilgrimage, as were others. Some traveled in groups. I traveled alone. I took only a small bag and wore a pendant around my neck that had great meaning to me. Along the way, I met many interesting and captivating people, some who had followed alternate routes. Often, they tried to persuade me to come with them, some saying their way had just been easier. I encountered those who have meant the most to me, Grandma, Jim, Michael. Each insisted I must go ahead without them. Each time, they said that time itself would bring us back together again. Sad to journey on alone, I trusted still my instincts to continue. I came to the most exquisitely beautiful mountain, green at the bottom, rocky cliffs between, snow-capped above. The travelers who had made it that far stood in awe together at the foot of the mountain. Most chose to walk around the mountain, yet something urged me to make the climb, no matter how hard or impossible it seemed, no matter how long it took. When I finally reached the top, exhausted from the journey and not sure I could go a step further, I looked below and saw in every direction the most beautiful golden seashore with dozens upon dozens of spirit beings. I felt a belonging and a sense of understanding I have never before experienced. It was as if I knew I was finally home. At once I understood that all along God had guided me to this place, step by step, to this wonderful moment I was meant to experience forevermore. I awoke from my dream or vision just after the sun began to rise over the peaceful seas, and all became still, listening and knowing the presence of God. My last backward glimpse had me looking down past the golden seashore toward those who had walked around the base of the mountain. They were winding around on another path toward the horizon, missing entirely this golden seashore, which could only be seen from the mountain heights. So that was the vision I had, and it sounds simple, and as I'm reading it now, it sounds like nothing special, and yet it was everything to me. I'm 55 now. I was 29 when I wrote that. It's been an arduous climb for sure, and it's been one that has been lonely, this journey, and yet In my heart of hearts, I remember Jesus saying that we are only ever found on the way, and that the way opens up when we walk within it. That's really the only thing. We are found on the way, and that we are held in an infinite grace, and that the journey of life is always such a blessing. And if we follow the guidance that we receive and our own soul's deepest calling, our own soul's truth and radiance, as we follow that, it's as if we are following the star that will always lead us home, to that feeling of home, to the experience of home, to the full experience of this life. This is how we come to life and live in full expression. It's by taking one step at a time in the direction of our dreams, and yet not being afraid to leave it all behind and to take the less traveled path. Be present to ourselves as we are walking in the way. This is a poem called In the Fullness of the Light. How radiant shines that light, whose streams burst the dam of despair and flood the familiar room full with love's rising hope. See how it gathers, flowing in from roads long since traveled, pushing through the pinhole crack of soul, where all the fate that's left is enough, inexplicably, to fill the basket of days and light 12 candles for those yet on their way.